Hello everyone, my name is Mike Gray, and this is the Mental Health, Spirituality, and Metaphysics talk. This is going to be a class, an open discussion. We have a couple of lesson topics that some of you guys had told me you wanted to go over. You guys had some questions for me from last time as well. So we're going to just recap real quick what we went over last time, and then I'm going to go on to make a couple announcements. Then we will go on to introduce some guests that are with us here, and we might even be having some more, and we might have some people back from last time. Okay, so, first of all, to recap what we were going over last time. We were talking a lot about the mind, body, and soul connection, how the three are interlinked, how they correspond with one another, and how if there's any interference with these things, that it could cause what we know as dis-ease or disorder. Now, if something can go wrong with something that is meant to function a certain way, if something could fall into disorder, or rather chaos, for lack of a better word, then it should be able to be put back into order. So that was one of the main points that we were making last time. And we had a guest on here. Her name is Tabitha. And she shares the same disorder that I suffer from as well, multiple sclerosis, which is a autoimmune and neurological disorder. So what happens with it is your genes are telling your immune system to start attacking your central nervous system, which then erodes the actual nerves and the neuronal pathways in the brain, and can cause all types of different symptoms, ranging from loss of sensation, paralysis, to having pains and muscle spasms and cramping and seizures or convulsions for apparently no reason, just because the brain is misfiring and it's chemical warfare up there. So we were talking about the main thing was the spiritual or the mental components that are connected to these physical diseases or dis-ease or disorders. And that a lot of these things are the result of belief systems and narratives that are subconsciously programmed into us without even knowing that we actually unwittingly consent to allow ourselves to fall into a state where this problem, this interference between the mind, body, and soul can occur. Now, the good thing is we were talking about a little bit about metaphysical medicine and alternative medicines, as opposed to traditional medicine, which typically only offers treatments. In alternative forms of medicine, there are possible cures. And we went into a little bit about how, unfortunately, people are too nearsighted to see that there is money in cures and in preventative medicine. And the doctors should be allowing these cures and at least these better treatments that only the color green can buy you, should be more widely available to people. So that was a little bit what we were talking about. That is a lot of what my posts and my subject matter is about. A lot of my writing and just the book that I'm writing in general, and my book that was actually denied from being published. It was rejected. It was exposing a lot of this. So what I'm going to do today, I had a couple of announcements to make. And what I'm going to do today is go over some of these posts that were taken down by these algorithms and flagged as spam, Now, because they were flagged as spam, and I posted on Facebook what Facebook's own standards for spam is, which is, trying to get false likes or get, to advertise yourself or, to promote false information. So I just wanted to share with everybody in the class to see if they agreed with the decision that these Facebook algorithms made. And then, of course, I went into a little bit more detail about these algorithms. And number one, if they were programmed a certain way to find certain keywords, well then, what is the motive or what is the agenda of the people who are behind these algorithms, who are creating these things? And why is it this certain content and this subject matter that they want to censor? And no matter how many times I would remove tags, I would remove hashtags, I'd remove contact information, I'd remove other certain keywords, and then finally boil it down until my latest one was finally posted. So, without further ado, I'm going to share my screen so that everybody can see this new post, and I'm going to share it with you guys real quick. Yes, first, quick announcement. If anybody is just joining me now, you guys can follow me on Riverside FM. The link is posted again on the event page and also on the Mental Health and Spirituality and Metaphysics Facebook group page. Or you could just call in to the Facebook page. Also, this will be uploaded to my YouTube channel afterwards, so if you guys want to follow me or subscribe to my YouTube channel so you could watch these replays and, catch up on anything you guys might have missed, that's always out there for you guys. So now, without further ado, let's get to the banned and censored posts. Okay, so just give me a second so I could share with people in the class. Let me see if it allows me to share. I don't think I could screen share on both. Okay, so you guys, I'll just read it anyway so you guys could hear it. Or I could post it in chat. Well, it's already posted, so. But I'm going to also go over some other ones that were taken down. So, the title of the newest post that I have here, it's a short little essay, it's called Hope, Health, and Healing. And the subtitle is that all my work will not be in vain. Give it 100 years' time, and they'll know my name. 3 stages of truth. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer was noted as having stated that all truth passes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident, as if everyone knew the truth all along and didn't oppose those who first spoke up about it. Maybe that happens in a perfect world, in a parallel universe. But in the eyes of today's society, someone who writes and speaks about the content and subject matter that I do, being alternative forms of medicine and therapy, I'm likely to seem and be labeled, at least for some period of time, as either a sociopath, a false teacher, or a fraud who simply tells people what they want to hear. And by the traditional medical establishment standards and according to their literature, I'm sure there's an argument to be made there. somewhere to some degree. People do typically want to hear that they do have hope. However, what would I be called if I myself was a practitioner of the traditional Western medicine establishment, saying the same things? Or what would I be called in any other culture? Or what would I be called in any other period of time? Or by any other standard besides that which is put forth by an institution that profits off people being labeled as and staying sick so that their medical bills can pile up? The same institution which is set up to continue treatment and very rarely ever curing, or in many instances, not even finding the cause of an illness. A business. A business. Exactly. And it's a business that profits off treating the symptoms of the disease because they're convinced or believe that there's no money to be made in selling cures. And to some who make a profit off the healthcare industry, a life without material wealth isn't even worth living. So then the post goes into how not all medicine is equal. Pray that you don't have to find out the hard way for yourself. And then I asked the question, I posed the question, and this is for everybody: how does an institution with a philosophy, an approach, and form of medicine that has been around for less time and has yielded lesser results?
They have the Hippocratic oath
Right.
from the beginning, you know, to give and cure, and they denied it.
Right. Exactly. And that is what evolved into traditional Western medicine. So, but the question I'm posing is, how does such an institution, what become Western medicine through the Hippocratic Oath, how does that form of medicine, which has been around for less time, which has yielded lesser results than other forms of medicine, but has somehow become more widely accepted than other forms of medicine that date back thousands, if not 10,000s of years, which have gotten humanity this far? Is it through the power of influence and persuasion, or downright manipulation, or other forms of medicine which have been around longer, and mainly forms of preventative medicine centered around one's diet, even generally speaking, have historically had both a greater healing success rate at healing illnesses and has resulted in the curing of more illnesses than traditional Western medicine? So the question is, why does this system of just treating the symptoms, as you pointed out, Clayton, I'd like to introduce Clayton right now, who's talking with us right now. As Clayton pointed out, it's set up to treat these symptoms. So why, how does it become
because those simple herbs that be grown in your own garden and produced everywhere, and you can go to a mom and pop store to get it, are not these pills and cures and everything that the pharmaceutical and that the system will provide and they convince you of that they can do, and you can just convince us of this placebo and I'll be good. So that's what produces the money for the pharmaceutical companies and to the government, and keeps that system going, and keeps a public convinced of, one, just the lies, but two, actually, and this is the worst part of it, addicted to a false, this is the worst part of it. I mean, I'm not denying you're addicted to false drugs that ruins the society itself. not just by the beginning of the lie, but at the end, brings them into an addiction that perpetuates a psychological problem rather than a physical problem.
Exactly.
And this is what the pharmaceutical company does. And so they deny the natural herbs and things that
Exactly.
could actually cure, and because there's no money in that, there's no lies in that.
Right. Exactly. And that is the main point of, why I do what I do, and why, I got into metaphysical medicine, studying alternative forms of medicine, not just because, number one, I didn't set out to just, I didn't wake up one day and decide, okay, I want to just find ways to heal everybody and, and destroy the traditional medical establishment. That's not how it happened. What happened was I got sick. I was a patient for over 15 years of traditional medicine. I've tried every single drug. I've been misdiagnosed several times.
Many times, I know. I'm sorry. I know exactly what you're saying. I know it, Mike.
But you know what? I can't regret a single moment of it because it all got me to where I am today. And now I'm at the point where I could actually share this information that I learned from my own journey and save some other people from going through the similar hell that I had to go through.
It needs to be said. It needs to be said. That is it's a Goliath.
Absolutely.
I'll say this.
It is.
Goliath that, for the reasons we stated, has destroyed for their own ends, but our ends are people walking like zombies and not getting the cures they need to fill pockets or create agendas. It's a Goliath.
Absolutely. Let's give some applause for that one. It is a Goliath of just the pharmaceutical companies, the traditional medical establishment, the government, and the media, everything that drives this narrative and these belief systems forward, these limiting belief systems that keep us sick and that are meant to keep us going back to the doctor and just feeding this machine, this beast, this Goliath. That's all it's doing.
Not just physically. I mean, I fully sympathize with you there, Mike. But not just physically, but of course mentally.
Right.
It's on the other side too, and
right.
Sort of same reasons.
Right.
It's both sides, the physical and the spiritual, and
the mental. Right, and that is a good point. That is actually a perfect segue for what I wanted to get into next, which was the identifying the connections or recognizing, these challenges and weaknesses and figuring out what these narratives and what these belief systems in our subconscious are so that we can then reverse them and reprogram them. So just very quickly, I just wanted to share again another post. This one is one that was taken down. It was called Choosing Free Will. What is mental transmutation? Or I abbreviate it as MTM. So, mental transmutation. The knowledge of this process has been known of, passed down through generations, and practiced for a long time, mostly in secrecy since ancient times. It was known as one of the holy or royal art sciences of magic, or more accurately, mental transmutation, MTM. MTM consists of a person first, preferably reaching a heightened level of awareness where they can objectively observe their own thoughts and let whatever thoughts simply flow without focusing or holding on to any single one thought. As you continue to observe your own thoughts, you can begin to rearrange your feelings, which can then be shifted from positive to negative or vice versa, and then directed at something in particular and released. The goal isn't to transmute all of the darkness in the world into light, but to illuminate the darkness within yourself, and then from within begin to be that light. It shines forth into darkness and illuminates it, shedding light on what was previously unknown. Okay, so before I go any further, I just want to just open up to discussion. If, Clayton, if you have any comments to make on that, or who else is still with us?
That's a good comment. I like that comment. I'd have to think about it some more. I mentioned to you earlier in the chat that I'm more of a writer than a speaker.
Right.
Oh, and so I would have to actually really think about that. But I see that you are influenced by Eastern philosophy. You read some Eastern philosophy?
A little bit. I have a background in everything. I've come from both sides of the spectrum from a very young age. So I guess I'd fall more into the category of like Jungian psychology. So I take more of a metaphysical approach.
Yeah, when I started on psychology, that's who I began with, really, was Carl Jung. And I like Carl Jung. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's no problem. No, it's, I was opening this up to, whoever wanted to say anything. Right now, it looks like it's just you and me. So, let's continue. Because for people who are going to be watching this later, I just wanted to share this post that was taken down so that they could see what it was. So,
okay.
All right, so we're talking about mental transmutation, which, as I stated in the last paragraph, is a process that was practiced for a very long time, since ancient times, mostly in secrecy. Now, the reason for this is because it can be used for, nefarious reasons as well. It can be used to create illness, or it can be used to heal.
Convince us that the demons will, that we can connect with the demons through, that's the way the other side teaches that we'll connect to it. It's hard to explain. Well, let me just put this up there.
Take your time.
I don't know if I can say this here.
No, well, this is a safe space. You can say whatever you want.
I will offend a lot of people if I say it.
Go ahead. It doesn't matter. If you being offended is a choice. If somebody chooses to be offended, that's their choice.
I know.
So, please speak your piece. Speak your truth.
Okay. When in say astrology or whatever we are convinced convinced that we could connect to someone from the other side, to a family member, and this is what they do. They'll convince us that we can connect to a family member to the other side,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not what it is. Because that we think we are connecting with by being convinced by this person is not the one we are connecting with.
Yes. And
not by that person.
I agree.
We can't, well, whatever, but not through the methods that they provide.
Right.
You see?
yes. And
The realm is possible, the realm is there, but not through, these avenues that are presented through,
through popular culture and that
Yeah.
are perpetuated
Exactly.
through to the general public. And yes,
and they'll convince the public, even just, in the store, or the movies, or, I'll go,
right.
the
Yes.
propaganda scene.
Well, yeah.
But
One
I'm
of
sorry to interrupt your point. Go on, Mike.
no, that's fine. Thank you. You actually brought up a good point, which is that yes, a lot of these techniques, including mental transmutation, which is very very much intervening into the mind body soul connection to try to, the goal is to heal or fix whatever is in disorder or dis-ease. Now, this can also be used in negative ways. The same way you were saying that there is this possibility, this realm of possibility of being able to talk to, say, deceased loved ones or angels or demons, whatever. And there's a couple of reasons why what you said is true. The first reason is that a lot of people who claim to be able to communicate with the other side, with past and deceased relatives, they will use methods of mentalism and deception, and they will convince you that you're speaking to a dead loved one, because if you want it bad enough, they'll play on it. They'll cold read you. They'll be able to pick up on certain tells. They might even run background checks on you if you make an appointment ahead of time. They'll be, watching you through a video camera in the waiting room, reading your body language, seeing, if you're stressed out, if you're nervous, what your tells are. And then beyond that, to the other side, then there are people who actually are open, who can channel other beings, and these spiritual entities present themselves as if they are a dead relative. And sometimes they can be very convincing. Sometimes the medium or the person doing the channeling can even start to sound like, or in some cases look like, the person or the dead relative that the person thinks they're speaking to. Now, the way you could tell that you're definitely not speaking to a dead relative is because if you go out seeking to speak to the deceased or speaking to somebody on the other side, that is forbidden. It's against universal law. The living cannot communicate with the dead. However, there have been many instances, whether in the Bible or even in modern time, where a dead relative will visit somebody, either after recently being deceased or during times of great hardship. They're there to comfort them, in the form of, in their spirit, in the soul form. Now that is different, and the same goes with angelic visitations and things of that nature. That is something that then is ordained of God. It's part of the Creator's plan. It's not something that you are trying to make happen. It's not you opening yourself up to things that are beyond your comprehension. So that's why most of the time we're told not to seek things that are for information that is beyond this world. And to have such knowledge has driven a lot of people crazy and to do a lot of crazy things, because then, you know, it goes back to the mind, body, and soul connection. Once that connection is infiltrated, not just interrupted, but if it's infiltrated by another spiritual mechanism or another energy or spiritual entity, then that can completely override and control you know, mind, body, and soul. And that's good, as some people would consider possession. And there are levels to possession. There is, first, there is, I think, oppression, and then there's infestation, where it keeps getting worse. There, you know, like, you'll hear sounds or you'll see things out of the corner of your eye, then it'll start getting to the point where you're having nightmares or you can't sleep, and you're starting to get these certain feelings of, you know, fear and just panic and anxiety or depression, and you start having intrusive thoughts that aren't yours, and you can't figure out why you're having these thoughts. And the more you try to stop them, the worse it gets. Then, finally, once you give in to these thoughts, and say if somebody starts having feelings of suicide or self-harm, and then they actually do this, a lot of times they'll feel better, because it is this spiritual component that is being satisfied, that is causing and influencing this person to do this thing, because that is the gratification that it is seeking. It's seeking a certain emotion within us. It's trying to invoke a certain feeling that it can feed off of, because our feelings have energy to them. That is why love is the most powerful force in creation, because it bonds and ties and connects everything together. So, yeah, I just wanted to make that comment real quick. So I went on over a lot, so I hope everyone is still following me. But basically, just to recap, when I'm talking about these spiritual components to psychological things, what I'm trying to do is I'm putting a metaphysical perspective and an objective standpoint on what is traditionally or typically recognized as demonic possession or spirit infestation or channeling or whatever you want to call it. There definitely is something spiritual going on, but what people have to take into account is that it's not either something spiritual or something mental. It can be one or the other, but most of the time the two are interconnected indefinitely. And then that can cause physical ailments. And once it gets to the point where it's physical ailments, well, it snowballs. It starts at, such a tiny point with, so like an intrusive thought or, a traumatic experience or, a existential crisis where you're posed with a question that you can't accept, you can't understand, and it causes this dis-ease and disorder between the mind, body, and soul connection. And then, years down the road, you develop, and of course this is simplifying it, but you can develop any number of disorders. You can develop cancer, you can develop some type of autoimmune disorder or neurological disorder. A lot of people these days are suffering from neuropathy, which is nerve pain, or fibromyalgia, which traditional doctors, medicine, they don't understand where this pain is coming from, what causes it. They just know that certain drugs that work a certain way help it. So while these two things are true, they're not mutually exclusive, and people really have to start putting all the components and factors together if they want to be able to reach a state of not perfect, but near perfect health, where they can reverse these disorders and these diseases.
I agree. I like that, man.
Thank you.
Okay. I like your analogy of the transmutation between the mind, body, and soul. All right. Let's point out what you're going through physically. Your body is going through something,
Right.
and has been, but has created from that. You have created a good mind, a good mind.
Thank you.
Okay, it has been your body that has been the motivation to create that, which has created your soul. Okay, there are others.
Thank you.
So in this transmutation, that maybe it is the not the concern, and I don't mean to in any way belittle your situation. And I'm not sure if I'm even right in my own conclusion here.
Right.
But
well, nobody's right or wrong. It's just discussion.
Not concerned so much with the physical, but through their life have been less concerned with body and used the mind. I'm not saying you're not focused on the mind. I'm not saying that at all, because I see you are. But first focus was on the mind, and it was just the mind to create a soul and disregard the body, because it is only a tool, and I know it has to get us through this. Here.
Right.
But there are different paths through that transmutation. And I know you understand that.
Right. No, I agree with everything that you're saying, and it's very true. I mean, even if, say, an ailment that it becomes physical, if it doesn't start physical, or say if there's something mental that started physical, it could people get into car accidents and they're traumatized, whether they got hurt badly or not. It's a physical experience, it's external experience from the environment that affects them on an emotional and psychological level. And as you were saying, people a lot of times would focus mostly on the mind and, create this soul, and to really elevate themselves, in their awareness, then not worry about the body, and they don't take care of it because it's just a tool to carry, the mind and the soul. And that is a shame. And I think what happened is that in more recent times, people who tried to overcompensate for that by focusing only on the physical, and then having a separate form of medicine altogether that only focuses on the mental. And now you don't have any spiritual components in there. There's no spiritual care. So people will be having these, these psychological and these mental experiences that could borderline into something spiritual, and usually does correspond to something spiritual, and that could cause physical symptoms and ailments, And the solution in, traditional and modern medicine is to use medications and to, just keep going to therapy and to talk about it. And part of that is part of the healing process. But the point is that once you identify the causes and you are able to then question the reasons, once you know the causes and the reasons for something, you question it. And you examine it and you analyze it. There's Tabitha, hey. So then you examine. No problem. I'm glad to have you here. So we were just talking about some causes of physical, mental, and spiritual problems and how they correspond. So kind of just touching a little bit on what we talked about last time, but going a little bit more in depth. So as I was saying, once you, whether a disease or a disorder is physical in nature or spiritual or mental in nature, it doesn't matter when it comes to healing. When it comes to the healing process, you have to start with all. You have to take into account the mind, body, and the soul. And I was just touching on how, first Clayton was speaking on how in the past, a lot of people would focus mostly on the mental aspects and spiritual aspects to create this soul and to build up their, to elevate their awareness and their consciousness, and they would disregard the body. And now I feel that there's been this type of overcompensation where now people are focusing mainly on the physical and only on the physical and treating it only by physical means. And then there's a separate group, a separate form of medicine that only focuses on the mental and psychological aspects. And then there are alternative forms of medicine that try to connect the two. But the problem is that everything is leaving out the biggest component, which is the spiritual and the soul component. Because within the soul holds, the blueprints for the perfect version of you. You as, the perfect self, your higher self, some people call it. So to reach that, I believe what we have to do is we have to identify the causes of our disease or disorder or whatever issue or challenge we're facing. We have to question the reasons and question the causes.
Down to the bottom line. Yeah, question why this, why that.
Exactly. You question it, you get down to the root cause, who, what, when, where, why. You pinpoint everything down to the point where, we were talking before how things snowball. And Tabitha, you might know this phrase, by many small things do great things come to pass. And in many instances, it confounds the wise. Well, the same way great things and good things can come to pass by just building up on one small thing after another. That is how major disorders and diseases, like me, Tabitha also has MS. So we're starting to get into that a little bit, whereas no matter how severe or how innocuous a challenge or some type of physical ailment is for somebody, it can almost always be pinpointed back to something that is either psychological or spiritual. And I was using the example of somebody who has PTSD, for example.
I got bit by a jellyfish, baby, and that's what...
Right. Yes, that was... I remember last time we went over that.
Environmental or
that was amazing.
Give me that too.
Yes. So she was able to pinpoint exactly where her MS started, and it was getting bit by a jellyfish, which is interesting because for me,
Slipped into my bathing suit when I was 11.
and for me, it's interesting because there's definitely a connection because we both have multiple sclerosis. I got it from the contaminated water that I used to bathe in, not from drinking the water itself, but from it seeping into the pores of my skin.
Yeah,
Exactly. All the toxins and things that were there. So, in that sense, I believe, and I've stated this last time, that any disease or any disorder is completely unnatural to the creator's blueprint for what humans are
For the
meant to
natural
develop.
body.
Exactly.
Right.
So
The natural body, the everyone, the blueprint.
exactly.
Got it.
And of course, there are, like you said, a jellyfish caused your MS. So there are many environmental factors and things. The whole point is figuring that out. Who else is with us? Violetta, hey, nice to see you.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. How about you? I'm so glad
Good.
that I'm joining this meeting tonight.
I'm so
It is
glad
a-
you're
Yes, glad to have you here.
Hello, Violet. Glad you're good.
Hi,
Glad
Nice to
have
meet
guys
you.
here.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
All of you.
you're so great, all of you.
Thank you. So are you, Violetta.
Thank you.
So nuts, but hey.
Yeah. It's a crazy
Thank you.
world out there. If we don't take care of each
Yeah.
other, who's going to?
Yes, you're right. So right.
So,
Somebody has to.
That's
exactly. Might as well be us. So, so,
We're all,
so the topic of discussion for tonight was basically we're talking about pinpointing and identifying causes of disorders or diseases, and then really trying to use these methods, one of which is called mental transmutation, to try to reverse these belief systems and narratives that were subconsciously planted into us that then cause the development of these disorders. So, yes, sounds easier said than done, doesn't it? And it
I
is.
never.
And
I didn't have to outdo anything. Well, I'm saying.
well, Tabitha, you could probably speak to this better than most people. The whole principle of mind over matter. Now,
Oh, yeah.
when we wake up in the morning, I think we have this in common. I think most people like us do. When we wake up in the morning, our mind wakes up and we're ready to start the day, but our body is still just sleeping for like the next couple of hours. And then parts of us start to wake up before other parts. So before our legs wake up, usually our bladder wakes up.
Oh, God. Yes.
And
especially
then,
for an old man.
and then we have to will ourselves. We have to will ourselves to start waking our legs up. We have to talk to our legs.
Yes.
And I don't mean this in like, hippie tree hugging, positive thinking, the secret type thing where you talk to your leg and say, okay, leg, come on, move.
No, you have to tell your mind what it's going to do. You have to tell your body what it's going to do.
Exactly. You have
And
to
your body.
override that disconnection or that
That's right.
that
Well, if I can't do it this way, how the hell
interference.
can I?
Exactly. There you go. You override the interference, and you realize, okay, my leg or my arm. I'm just showing an example. My arm is moving this way. Okay. Well, if it's going to be moving this way, I'll just use this muscle to move my arm this way. And you've worked your way around it. Now that is the basic level, mind over matter or mental transmutation or MTM for short. But then you could really get even deeper into it, where it's not just managing and, coping with the symptoms of a disorder, but rather actually finding the root causes of each symptom and eliminating them one by one until you get all the way back to square one, where, if you reversed and, restored everything that went into disorder, then you're back to where you were in health.
I'm sorry, I gotta go now. I'm sorry, bye. I gotta go now. I'm sorry.
It was nice having you here, Tabitha.
It was so good to have you, see you. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna try your best.
Well, thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time, hopefully. Have a good night, Tabitha.
Everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Mike.
Okay. All right, well,
Hey, Mike.
yeah. Clayton.
Yep. We spoke of the mental, body, spirit. We spoke really of the mental and bodily.
Mm-hmm.
How was the conversation that you had on the last the last episode you did, connected to spiritual?
Good question. Well, that is pretty much...
Besides what we did touch on some as far as the physical connection to the spiritual and how, the physical world does it, but through the transmutation, how does then, through your episode, was anything said about how does it connect to the spiritual? I understand what you're saying, but if you can enlighten a little bit.
That's a perfect question. And that's a great segue into this next portion of the post that was taken down. So let me bring that up. Okay, so when you're using mental transmutation, as we've been talking about, through this practice, one can expect to reach the point where they're simply existing in a neutral and balanced state of being most of the time, and whenever disturbing or conflicting thoughts or confrontation arise, willing oneself subjectively and changing their perception of something from one polarity to the opposite polarity. This conscious and willful shifting of awareness and perception leads to a shift in behaviors and actions after catching even a glimpse of the larger portion of reality than the average person has access to. So let me just stop there and explain what all that means. Now, through mental transmutation, the spiritual component that is there is the actual component that is healing you. What we call the Holy Spirit, or universal consciousness, or I think that's the best term for it. Just the all-pervading, underlying fundamental force behind everything, the force of creation, creator, you could call it. That force of creation is what we would call spirit. And we are all souls, and our souls are part of that spirit. And our souls are, encapsulated within this physical mortal vessel, and there's a, intimate link and connection between your physical body, your mind, and your soul, which is interconnected to this universal consciousness or spirit, which is pure creation and pure love and healing energy and peace and comfort. So, as it said in the Bible, all good things are from God. So, the natural state of the spirit is health. And it says in the Bible, I think it's a quote from Jesus, where he says, "I pray that you may be in good health as it goes good with your soul." Meaning, your soul is always in perfect health. Your soul is that part, that divine spark within you that comes from the Creator. It's that part of the universal consciousness within you. So in mental transmutation, when you go to that place where you're in a state of just objectively observing your own thoughts and being able to question them and see them as if you're a different person, seeing yourself from a third person perspective, that is the spiritual aspect, where you're, to use the analogy again, you are, what did I say? You're seeing yourself, this conscious and willful shifting of awareness and perception leads to many shift in behaviors and actions after catching even a glimpse of a larger portion of reality than the average person has access to. So once you connect to that universal consciousness, which people often describe as a oneness or, a connection to everything, that is the force of the Spirit and the power of the Spirit that you use to then heal yourself. And I know that sounds very vague, and I need to go into a lot more detail about it. And unfortunately, this post which I'm sharing, unfortunately, this post that I'm sharing was taken down. So that was a perfect question as to about what the spiritual aspect is of this. So the next portion of this post was creation and its connection to mental transmutation. So creation itself, as I was explaining, the connection between this process and, exploiting or using the fact that we are connected to this force of creation, and how the two are interlinked. So MTM, mental transmutation, on a more grandiose scale, structured from the microcosmic and subatomic levels to the macrocosmic scale of things, meaning from the very tiny to the extremely large, also includes the process by which the formation of our reality is sustainable as a mental projection of our own thoughts, mental constructs, and images onto the material world, which then in turn are observed and affect our overall shared and individual conscious experiences. The same principle can be applied to the way the All, or the Holy Spirit, which is another name for the universal consciousness, creates everything contained within it. Is also the same way in which a person can influence their positive thoughts. They will encourage and attract more positivity. And with negativity, it is the same. So, the great concept of this spiritual warfare, that there is a constant battle between good and evil, and that this war basically rages on within us, and that we are the ones who carry out the works of God, the works of creation, and build the kingdom of heaven on earth. Or we could choose to, reject and rebel against that, the original blueprint of creation, and we can choose to cause disorder and destruction, or opposite of creation.
It wages in us, though. That war wages in us. That is the war. The war isn't out here in the physical world. The war is in us. That is the war.
And then what I was explaining in the post was everything occurs also from a microcosmic level, meaning, tiny subatomic, all the way to the macrocosmic, meaning the planets, the universe. So, because we're within that spectrum somewhere, yes, the war is raging on within us. But then, what we choose to do and act on what is going on within us, that then creates our external environment, which then in turn influences us even more. So it's like if you take a criminal and you lock them up with a bunch of other criminals in an institution that is basically set up to make you feel like you are a prisoner, like you are a criminal, like you are worthless, then how do you expect somebody to respond to that external environment unless that person, and this happens to many people in prison, unless that person is able to go within themselves and to really, confront that conflict, that inner war going on inside them. And once they're able to win the war within, and the good and the light wins, then they're able to project that light outward. And we know who these people are because we revere them for their greatness. I'm talking about people like, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Jesus Christ. I mean, the list goes on. Gandhi, Mother Teresa. I mean, the list goes on. These are just people who are recognized for their works and for their actions and what they contributed to society for the greater good. And then, on the opposite side of that spectrum, there are people who, have forever been, written in history as being, evil, like Hitler.
That list is a lot longer.
Right. And that evil that is done, which is in opposition to the natural blueprint of creation from the Creator. Anything that causes destruction or anything that strays away from being anything that strays away from being fruitful and joyful and happy and healthy.
From truth. Ain't a lie. A lie. That's the bottom line right there. A lie is what destroys. It is the lie that destroys.
Right. And that's
it's the truth that creates.
Exactly. Amen to that. And that's why Satan is called the father of all lies. Because the source, this great source of evil and opposition to God, to the Creator, is the father of all lies. And God is the God of truth. He is the truth. Well, then we have to do a lot of searching, not outside, but within us. We have already, anyone who's lived, say, at least 18 years, or even, earlier. I started my spiritual journey at 12, 13 years old. So once you get to the age of reason where you're able to think for yourself, I think once you are able to reach that age, you have to start doing some introspection, because you've already been learning and absorbing and taking in all these things from around you and your surroundings, and you've been taught all these things, not all of which are correct. So then you have to start unlearning things. How do we do that? That's what the process of mental transmutation is. It's identifying the causes of a certain behavior or a trait, or the causes of some type of thoughts, like say an intrusive thought, or like depression or anxiety. One of the things people wanted to discuss, or wanted to have discussed, was overcoming depression and anxiety. Well, once you identify the cause, which, and we touched on this before, how there's forms of medicine which only cater to the mental and psychological aspects of something, and they really don't touch very much on the psychosomatic or the connection between the physical side of, these mental challenges.
And often cause the opposite of the intended purpose in order to perpetuate what we talked about earlier.
Exactly. So the bottom line is that we have to understand the root cause. And traditional therapy does a good job at doing that. The only problem is that through talk therapy, or traditional just, psychotherapy, where you try to, what the therapist is trying to do is trying to identify what feelings and emotions are linked to what external environmental factors or triggers, so that we can start to understand and then examine and analyze and really begin to question yourself, okay, is this reaction logical? Is this a rational response? Is this doing me any good? Is this serving me? Is this causing me problems? And once you really start to understand that, you could start to overcome the ailment, whether it's anxiety or depression or post-traumatic stress disorder or flashbacks or certain triggers you can start to overcome. The only challenge within traditional therapy is that it's very rare that somebody will get into the position where they can objectively observe their own thoughts and feelings without having some type of bias to it. So, for example, you could go to a therapist for 15 years, and the therapist could know literally nothing about you if you don't have a strong dialogue and open communication with them. Because if you could be talking, for an hour straight, they're listening to you, they remember and they, understand everything, or think they understand everything you say, but they interpret it completely differently. They're interpreting it
written for someone else.
Right, exactly. They might not have actually, as I referenced before, they might not have won the war within themselves, and they might be projecting some of their own problems and their own beliefs onto their patients. So when they're listening to somebody, say, talking about the problems in their relationship or in their marriage, or having problems raising their child, or problems with their boss or employees, the therapist might, do what's called active listening. So you're kind of just sitting back and you're trying to observe the overall tone, the overall message of the person. And the message from the person that they're trying to get across might be that, hey, this person is doing A, B, and C, and it makes me feel this, that, and the other thing. I don't know why I'm feeling this way. Can you help me? And the therapist is projecting his own self onto that, and he's saying, oh, I know what the reason is, because in my life, in my relationship with my spouse or with my kids, this is how things go with me.
Tell you this.
Right. So what it takes is you need that spiritual component, which is separate but still interconnected to the mind and body, because the soul is what controls both the mind and the body, but at the same time, the mind and the body can program the soul into believing certain things, and then the soul then projects that outward again. I'm sorry, Violet, you had something to say?
Yes.
Hello, Violet.
Hello, I don't hear you very well, but I really enjoyed the conversation. I would like to ask Mike something. For example, what is the fastest way to reconnect to universal love or universal mind or whatever you call it, universal energy?
Universal
and how do you follow, how you recognize if you lie to yourself? What is the best way to recognize it? Through inner experiences, through outer situations, conditions, etc.? Or what is the right way? What is the most the healthiest way to solve those kind of problems?
It's a beautiful question, and I'm very glad you asked that.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I would really like to hear.
that is a great question, and I'm sure many other people that have similar questions and are wondering the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, all of this information that I'm sharing and all this information that you could get out there online, it's all great, but then the question becomes, how do you apply it to your life? How do you make it work? What do you actually do to get to that point to where you could just heal yourself and you don't have to go to the doctor anymore? Or you just, have a few sessions with somebody who helps you heal yourself. What is the fastest way? Well, some of the ways are there's more than one way, and some of them are very controversial. I will start with the least controversial, and I'll work my way up. Now, something you touched on is, how is it just something that you do physically, or is it something mentally? Well, but for example, the first example is meditation. Now, meditation required to do it properly or healthily, as you said, which is, I think, a great word for it. To do meditation or any of these techniques healthily and correctly, what you need to do is you need to understand the science behind it. So when you meditate, most people, they'll sit in the lotus position, they have their legs crossed and their spine straight. Now, that is the main point, is you have to keep your spine straight. Now, there's a whole host of reasons I could get into this, and I could do a whole nother, lecture on this. But when you keep your spine straight, what you're doing, essentially, is you're allowing your physical vessel to let the spiritual and, psychic energy flow straight through you. Now, there's analogies people make with the spine to what's known in the Bible as Jacob's ladder. Jacob's ladder is basically Jacob, who was later named Israel, had a dream that there is this ladder coming down from heaven and these angels descending down from it. And then Jacob ended up wrestling with an angel, and he was renamed Israel, which means one who wrestles with God. So when you think of that analogy, the spine acts as a physical catalyst or conduit for something spiritual to take place. The same way, same principle applies to praying. Now, we can all pray in our minds. We could all meditate when, or we could do walking meditations. We could meditate, with our eyes open. There's different forms of meditation. But the healthiest way is to keep spine straight. You keep your eyes closed, and what you want to do is you want to focus inward. So if someone has trouble really focusing inward and seeing with their mind's eye, what you want to do, a good trick, is you light a candle, or you even if you don't have a candle, you could glance at a light bulb that isn't too bright, and you stare at it for about 10, 15 seconds. And you close your eyes, and you just focus on the after image within you that you could see in your mind. And as you're doing that, you're shifting your focus and your attention inward. And then once you start to focus and move your attention inward, you start to feel almost this ocean, this wave, this flowing presence. And within that, the only way I can explain it is that within that feeling, you start to feel this just urge of that presence, that's the spirit, the universal consciousness wanting to come through you. And what you have to do is just, you don't fight it, you just allow it to happen. You let the experience happen. And once you let it just completely consume you, and you're in it, and you're focused completely inward, then what you do is you just bask in it. You just bathe in it. You become familiar with it. So that then once you're trying to apply, say, something like mental transmutation or a guided meditation, to where you're actually trying to use, a form of psychotherapy to make the connections between, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual together, then you remember that state. You close your eyes, you keep your spine straight, and then your body, you have muscle memory and everything, so your body, already when you're into that posture, your body is starting to produce all the chemicals and the endorphins and pump it through the blood, and it's starting to recreate that state of mind that you were in, or that the chemical composition, so that your body can be in that state. It's already starting. Then you close your eyes, and the second you all you do is you just focus on that feeling, and it's there again. And sometimes people have challenges with this, and you could always do the same thing. You could always do the candle thing again, or focusing on the light, or and there's breathing techniques as well. This is another great one, box breathing, which you close your eyes, you get comfortable, but not too comfortable to where you're going to fall asleep, which is a big big distinction. Get comfortable, close your eyes, and you count and inhale, starting 4 seconds. So you go in, 2, 3, 4, and you hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then inhale again and repeat. And as you're focusing on your breathing, that will also shift your focus and your attention inwards. And what you're trying to do here is you're trying to shift your mind's focus, your attention, from the external and think that your outside environment to your soul and your heart. So you're connecting the brain to the heart, the mind and the soul together. And then you're able to view everything from a soul perspective, or in other words, from the eyes of God. And once you then start to really, and of course you can do this by yourself with using affirmations. There's ways of self-hypnotizing yourself, where you write down affirmations. I am healthy. I am safe. I am happy. I am prosperous. whatever you are. I am grateful, I am whole, I am loved. Whatever you desire, and then you meditate, and you go back into that space of that oneness, and you focus then on that intention. You go into that space with the intention. Or if you have somebody who can help guide you through it, then you go back to that meditative state, and they will guide you through a meditation. For example, they might tell you to put, and if you guys want to try this right now, you try it together.
Yes, I would like it. It would be great. Yeah.
Okay.
Can we break together?
Okay, yes. So, yeah, let's do this together, and then
Yes,
anyone...
and one more question, please, Mark.
Oh, sure.
Because I will forget. You continue to talk. What I wanted to ask you is, are affirmations really good? Because you have desire, but you still don't have the feelings, still don't have the answer. Are they so good to be used, or maybe we should use some other methods to connect to the universal truth, love, etc., consciousness?
I think the affirmations are great. The only thing is that any one tool used by itself is always going to be, made more efficient if you use other tools with it. So, like you were saying, affirmations are great and everything, you could write them down, but if you don't really have that feeling there, you don't really believe what you're writing, well, then you're just writing down sentences. You have to really, like I was saying, you have to get into that state and into that space where you are writing from your soul. So your soul is writing to yourself. Your soul is writing to you. So you are seeing what your soul is saying and what the spirit, what God, the universal consciousness, is telling you it wants for you and what you are. That's why you use I am affirmations. So definitely combined with other methods, and this is true with any method. You could use all of them together, and it all depends on the person and what works best for them. So
What they feel
thank you for
is
that
the
question.
best way for them, or the right combination. Yes.
Right. So that's why I
Thank
want
you
to.
for the answer.
Thank you for the question. So that's why I want to. All right, so that's why I want to do this guided meditation real quick, and this way we could do this together, and anyone who's watching afterwards can also join in. Okay, so we're going to sit with our spine straight. If you want to get comfortable, if you want to cross our legs, if we're sitting on a couch or a chair, just get comfortable, but not too comfortable that you fall asleep. And now close your eyes and you breathe. You inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 2, 3, 4. Repeat. As you continue to breathe, feel all of the light and peace from the divine source of creation filling up your body. And as you exhale, you're letting go of all your negative emotions. And then after you inhale and you hold it, you hold that space and you feel just for a moment. You just feel what you're feeling. Just experience it. And then exhale. Again. And hold it. And hold that space there. You're letting go of the negative energy with every exhale. And you inhale. Breathing in all the positivity, all the good things that God has in store for you. You're attracting positivity. You're turning all the darkness into light. Now you're holding that space. And this is the space where you heal. And you exhale. And you release all that tension. And you hold that space again. And you feel the peace and the joy that is building within you. And you inhale again. And you feel it even greater. Now, you see above you a pillar of white light coming down from above you. And as you continue to breathe, the light surrounds you. The light is healing you from within. Remember, this is all very real. This is taking place on the astral plane and the mental state. The imagination is just as real as anything else. You hold that space. You hold that light within you. As you exhale, release all the tension. All of the problems and challenges of today are over with, behind you. And as you inhale, you breathe in that light and that peace, and you know that tomorrow is going to be a better day. And all of this peace and this love and this energy from the source of creation that is within you, you are going to use it to emanate outwards. And you are going to be a light for other people. As you continue to hold this space and to breathe, you are healing not only yourself, but you are healing the entire world. You're starting to see things from a higher perspective. You're starting to see how all things can be turned into something good. You're starting to see that you have that power and that capability. And it was always within you. Continue to breathe in divine light and hold that space. And you exhale and release all the tension and negativity. And you hold that space of peace and comfort, and you tell yourself I am healthy. I am at peace. And you breathe in, and you believe, and you feel the peace, and you feel the happiness. You feel being healthy. And hold that space. And now I'm going to count backwards from 5. 5. You're starting to feel. You're starting to feel the ground beneath you. 4. You're starting to feel the surroundings and hear things in the room around you. 3. You're starting to regain sensation and awareness of your surroundings. 2. You are now starting to wake up, and everything has sunk into your subconscious. And 1. You are now connected and you are awake. Open your eyes.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mike.
How did that feel?
It was powerful. Powerful. I feel some great relaxation. I had pain in my left leg and it's gone.
Really?
I'm so thankful.
Oh,
yeah.
wow. Wow. Well, God bless. I'm glad that helped. Clayton?
Yes, that is a wonderful feeling. That
That's
we are
great.
so powerful that in just a few seconds or minutes we are connected and healed. That is a wonderful
There it is.
idea, wonderful feeling and wonderful experience, really. Thank you, Mike.
There it is. You're welcome. Thank you again for being here, because that is, just a testament to how real this is and how powerful really our minds and our souls are.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and that we really need to start paying attention to these things more. And the more that we practice these things and make it a part of our everyday life, the easier it becomes. And the less we need to do it, and the more we want to do it, because then we get to the state where we could help others. So
Yes.
that is the goal. So
Yes, you're right. I like what you just said. No need to do it, but just my desire. I want to do it. That is the big difference, and that is the main thing. In fact, that's the right connection to God. I love you.
thank you. I love you too. I love it. And Clayton, how was your experience? What did you think?
That was nice. I enjoyed meditation. I don't do it as deeply as you do. It's nice, the walkthrough. I think once you develop the tools you've explained and really get to understanding of yourself and the spiritual, and I think you can jump to that point.
Yes,
Rather
exactly.
than have to walk through it. It's just about a process of walking yourself through it, thinking about, and that's what it is, meditation. It's getting yourself to a point of relaxation so you can separate your physical body and connect to your mental and spiritual self. And once you do that and develop that and develop that habit,
Right.
and that process is good just for your own spiritual mental well-being.
Right.
It's good to walk through that and to think through those processes and just to establish, because every day is a struggle and it helps calm you. And
Right, exactly.
My only point there was, in my beginning, I think you can jump to that point without having to go through that process.
Right. Well,
I mean, not everybody. I mean, you have to develop the process, you know?
Right, exactly. And yeah, that's why I was saying there are a lot of ways to, connect to that spiritual, world, that, to that oneness. But for everyone, it's different, and everyone has to work at their own pace.
There's really only one way. I mean, it's the way you describe, and it really is the one way. And there's the way you describe. Everybody has to go through that. It's a walk.
Right.
It's a walk.
Right,
and
but not everyone can do it all at once.
I know.
Some people have a hard time.
And that's all right. We're saying that there can be a jump.
Yes, absolutely.
And,
Violetta just showed us.
The process is what you just described. That's part of the process. And then once a person develops that and just understands that and realizes exactly what you said, then it's and more, through that process, this is the thing, through that process, you learn to understand by understanding your own balance with the mental and the spiritual and the bodily. Through that process, you understand the most important point is truth, And
exactly.
In understanding that, once you go through that process, when understanding that, you can jump to that point.
Exactly. And amen to that.
And that's what it's about, I think, and
Right.
That's the whole central point, is just understanding what is true and separating truth from lies. And that's the reason for the process you described, is to help us to physically just balance ourselves so that we can mentally and spiritually get to that point.
Right. And like we talked about earlier, to kind of, settle that conflict or win that war within us, so that then we could,
And that is a war, and that's why he said that. That's why he said. That's why he required us to come to him in fear and trembling, because how else can we do that?
Right.
I mean, we must go through a process of understanding that maybe I'm not doing this thing right. I'm believing a lie.
Right.
I need to figure out the truth. And if I believe that, okay, he's going to accept me, everything's okay with the world, well, that's not the process you described, and that's not the requirement he requires.
Right. It requires work. And like you said, it really comes down to like when you start examining and analyzing, these causes and these problems that, we're facing, we really have to try to challenge the beliefs and narratives that we have and decipher what is true from what is a lie within us that we're telling ourselves. So thank you for the comment. Thank you for the comment. Okay, so we covered a lot today, and I just want to thank everybody for participating. We're going a little over an hour and a half now, so we're going to have to continue this again next week. But thank you guys so much for hopping on and for your comments. Violetta, I'm so glad that you.
I'm so glad that I joined you. I love all of you. You are so great people and so positive and spreading the divine message and help so many people, because people are in need, really. They are all around us, and we are on some journeys too, of course. So it is all helpful. Thank you for all your efforts, and I'm sending love to all of you. Enjoy your day.
Thank you. Thank you, Violetta. And Clayton, thank you for all of your comments, and I really appreciate the time and everything. For everyone else who is here, Tabitha, I think we had a couple other guests for a while. Some quick closing remarks. Just for anyone who's watching this replay, please remember to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is going to be a weekly occurring thing. So, yes, I will be hosting this type of class discussion and, podcast every Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You guys could reach me on Facebook. And go to facebook.com/MichaelAlbertRay11. You can also find me Instagram, the same tag. Please, again, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'd like to thank our guests again for being here, and I'll see you all next week, hopefully, same time, same place. And next topic, we'll go into more ways how we can apply these things to our everyday life, and maybe go a little bit deeper, and maybe have another guided meditation. So again,
wonderful, so inspirational.
Thank you, everybody, so much for coming.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Willie.
Thank you. All right. Good night, everybody.
Goodbye. Enjoy the day. Bye-bye.
All right. Enough of that cheesy fake applause and everything. All right, yes, I would just, again, like to thank everybody who participated in tonight's class discussion. I went over a lot of topics. We discussed a lot of things. There were still a couple subjects that even I looked out that we will continue next time, going on to ways to apply this information and this knowledge to our everyday life to really see results in healing. And as Violetta asked and brought up a great question, was what are some of the faster ways or more healthy ways to connect to this source of divine oneness, this universal consciousness? And of course, there are many ways to do that. We covered some of them, so next time we'll go into that more in depth. But I would just want to thank everybody again for watching, for participating, anyone who is sharing comments in the group chat, everyone who called in, Tabitha, Clayton, Violetta, thank you again. Thank you everybody for watching. My name is Michael Ray. Good night. This is Mental Health, Spirituality, Metaphysics Talk. See you next week.